Hello everyone. Welcome to another, I was going to say session, this is not a therapy session, but another show of It Has Nothing to Do with Age or Gender. Before I introduce our illustrious guest, unfortunately Tony's not here today. His wife suffered a horse injury and she just had surgery a couple days ago, so he's helping her. But Tony will be back as soon as possible. Also, I'd like to report to you that I just talked with my editor of my new book that's coming out, Beau's Warriors, and it's going to the printer, which means that in 2 weeks, that's a good thing. And it'll be distributed from the distributor, I was told August 27th, and it'll be in the bookstores 2 to 3 weeks after that. So, public service announcement. All right, the guest today, and is the one and only Tom Johnson. Tom, welcome to the show.
Nice to be here, thank you.
Good. What I normally do is start with a quote and ask to see if this quote applies to you. It may or may not apply to you. And if it does, if you'll just talk about that a little bit before we get into the meat and potatoes of the show.
All right.
All right. This is by Ivan Turgenev. If we wait for the moment when everything is ready, we shall never begin. I can repeat it if you like, or you got it? You got it?
If we wait to the moment when everything is ready, we shall never begin. I don't think that. I think that's an apt quote, and fortunately, I think
for you.
I learned a long time ago that if you wait until everything is ready, you never get anything accomplished. And so, just got to forge ahead, go with what you got, and be prepared to be flexible and adaptable as you proceed with whatever it is, a sporting endeavor, your work. We were barely ready when the show started rolling, and yet here we are having an interesting, hopefully interesting conversation.
There you go. Today was a perfect example of it.
Exactly.
Right? Okay. Maybe, can you recall that moment that you realized that things aren't perfect and you have to forge ahead anyway?
Nope.
Was there anything in particular?
No, I don't think so. I think that was an accumulation of life's lessons learned from about age 8 through about age 20 or 21, where you get little bits and pieces. And when you're young, you're in a pretty controlled environment. You go to school, you have a few friends, you come home, and then as you go out in the world and you experience more things, you go more places, you meet good people and maybe bad people, and you're pressed into situations, and all of that accumulates, and someday, maybe when you're a teenager, early 20s, you suddenly go, wow, this is what adulthood is. It's a constant balance of having to deal with what's in front of you and still accomplish what you set out to accomplish.
Okay.
So I would call it accumulated wisdom.
Accumulated. Okay, and you're beyond your 20s now, so you're still accumulating.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's go back to age 8. And where are you at age 8?
Where was I physically? Emotionally, mentally?
All the above.
Let's see, we lived for a number of years in Palm Springs, and this was a long time ago, and way before it was the Palm Springs that people might vacation to now. It was a little rural, not much of a town down the road from the glitzy Palm Springs. We were in Palm Desert.
Palm
Sorry.
Desert.
I'm
Okay.
sorry about that. Not Palm Springs.
You were close to Palm
Close,
Springs.
yeah.
though.
It's all literally one mash from Rancho Mirage to Palm Springs.
Especially now.
And it was a great place to grow up as a kid because you ran around in your shorts, nothing else, maybe some sandals, spent half your day in the pool, went to school once in a while, and the desert was vast, and you could just run around, play, and do things.
So at age 8, you were running in the desert.
Running around in the desert, chasing lizards and things. You know what boys age 8 do.
Okay. So what brought the family to Palm Desert?
Oh, my dad worked in, he started out with one of the big 5 accounting firms, Arthur Andersen.
Okay.
And after a decade or so there, and a lot of sort of itinerant moving around that you did when you were coming up through the ranks there, his background and interest was in agricultural sort of economics and accounting. And so he took a job with a large feedlot operation in Thermal, which was, 10, 20 miles away from Palm Desert. And so we moved down there, and there we were.
I met your father once. What's his name?
Marvin.
Marvin. Okay. So Marvin was an accountant background? Okay. So you weren't born in Palm Desert?
Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Okay.
But in the days before computers, even before calculators.
You're not that old.
No, but the accounting trade was a little different, and Arthur Andersen, my understanding was that they would send a team of accountants to go and do an audit or to do some project at a large company, and you would get assigned, my dad would get assigned for 8 months or 18 months to a company in a town. And so I was born in Minneapolis, my sister was born in Michigan. I think apparently before I was really aware, I did time in a couple of southern cities as well. And I think that wear and tear of moving around was probably part of what precipitated interest in going just to California and staying there for a while. But
so
I'll have to ask my dad that.
Okay, so when Dad got an assignment, the whole family picked up and went. So what's your sister's name?
Devin.
Devin. So where in Michigan did you live?
She was born in Dearborn, which is, I believe...
Near Detroit.
Between
Detroit and Ann Arbor.
There you go.
Incidentally, my book, Bo's Warriors, is about the University of Michigan, Bo Schembechler.
There you go.
So she would know, he would know, that they would all know. And you probably might even know if you're just about that age. Okay, so you're going all over. You're living in different places. By age 8, you're running in the desert. When did you first start running, and where was that? Was that in the cold of Minneapolis, or?
No. I didn't start actually running. I didn't have a lot of interest in sports until I was in high school. I shouldn't really say that. I played Little League baseball. I was always kind of a skinny kid, ran around.
You're still a skinny kid.
To get from here to there, it was faster to run than to walk. But I didn't really gel more with running until I went out for track in high school, sort of as a lark, I think.
Okay,
more than
we're
anything else.
going to stop and go back a minute. Okay, so even though you're running in the desert, you're just being a boy.
Running around chasing lizards, yes.
Okay, and what about how much older is Devin than you?
20 months younger.
Oh, okay. So you're the oldest.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just you and her.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then she ran after you.
No. She wasn't into running around in the desert. That's what the boys did.
Okay. Now, I know your dad is a runner.
Mm-hmm.
So back then, was he competing?
He had a really interesting trajectory, still does.
Okay.
He started running sometime probably when I was in junior high school, maybe even grade school. And this, recall, was sometime in the mid 60s. This was way before Jim Fix and the running boom, such as it was, started.
Are you still in Southern
By
California?
now we're in Salinas.
Oh, you're in Salinas now.
We've,
Okay.
we've moved again,
Okay.
and my dad has his own feedlot and ranching operation in Salinas with a couple of partners. So we're living in Salinas, and he decided, for whatever reason, that he needed to either lose weight or get more fit, and he started going running. Every morning he would get up at ungodly hours, I don't know, 4:30, before 5 o'clock, which is all I knew at 12 or 14.
You weren't up at that time, were you?
No, definitely not.
Okay.
And he'd go out and run 3 or 4 miles, whatever. And then it wasn't until years later that he did his first actual 5K race. And years after that, when he ran his first marathon, I think he was 59.
Okay.
And he ran his first ultra marathon at 61.
Okay.
And by 65 won his age group at a national championship race, ultra distance race. So he was a late bloomer, shall we say.
Okay. Okay.
Early starter,
Yeah.
early
okay.
adopter, but a late bloomer.
Okay. So, how about your mom? Is she an athlete?
Nope.
Not a runner? Not?
Nope.
Okay. All right. So Dad is
Proud of it.
proud of it. Okay. So your dad started his running career in Salinas. You're almost junior high, sixth, seventh grade, middle school.
We were in Salinas from about, I want to say, 4th grade, so 10, 11 through till
Okay.
18. Graduated from Salinas High School.
Okay. So you're aware of your father's running.
Mm-hmm.
How did that impact you?
I don't know that it did until it made it easy when I did start running. And actually, my path to running was a little circuitous. A couple of buddies and I went out for the swim team.
High school?
High school swim team.
Okay.
I used to splash around when I was a kid back in the desert, so I know how to swim. We went out for the swim team at this point you're 15 or thereabouts. And it turns out that splashing around in the pool is a lot different than swimming laps and learning to go fast. And that there are kids who started their competitive careers at about age 8 with the YMCA in Salinas and had been swimming competitively for 5 or 6 years. So we got killed, those of us latecomers. And so the second year we decided we needed to go out for swimming again, but we'd go out for track.
You're a sophomore now.
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, I think we went out for cross country. That came before swimming season.
Okay.
To get in shape so we wouldn't get killed quite so bad when we went out for swimming.
So the running was going to get you into shape for
Exactly.
swimming. Okay. For the laps that you were going to do.
And I at least discovered a much greater aptitude for running than I ever had or will have for swimming.
Tell us about how that happened.
Well, we just went, it was great. You didn't have to do much, pass a physical, and show up on the first day when they were signing people up for the team. And
so that part, but
that
I mean
was
the
easy.
part that you realized you liked the running. Or didn't you not realize it just yet?
I don't, it was fun to do. It was a group sport. We'd ride the bus and go to wherever for meets or for training or for whatnot. A lot of us, me, were pretty distracted in high school. There were girls, there were classes, there might have been beer, there might have been other things involved.
Might have been. What is this might have been?
And so, we didn't take it really seriously. So, I might have been 3rd or 4th in an event or two at a track meet, at a small track meet. But I wasn't.
Still cross country?
Cross country and track.
And track.
Yeah, ran the 1 and 2 mile for the
1 and
most
2.
part.
Okay.
Might have got 2nd or 3rd or 4th at a cross country meet, but nothing to write home about.
Okay.
And then
That's still pretty good.
small meats,
Small meat.
small pond.
Small pond.
We'll get to the bigger pond stories in a while.
Okay. But it was a starting point.
It was a starting point.
And so did your father, do you think you were influenced at all by your dad, or?
It made it painless. If
What
you're
part?
if you are around someone who goes running every day, and again, this was still before the gym
Yes,
fix and
yes,
everyone out
yes.
jogging and whatnot, and yeah, you had the support of the team that you were on, but still, it was on the weekends you'd run on your own, and it was not unusual or unnatural. If nobody else in the family run, it might have been a bigger leap to get into it. I don't know.
Might have been. How did your father support you with your running? Did he say anything?
You know, my folks were very good about letting me find stuff, and as long as it didn't detract from schoolwork, because that was important, and you know, the basic rules of the house. I used to go work and quite a bit, help my dad out on the weekends on the ranch or the feedlot or whatnot. So
you had you had a ranch in Salinas then, right? You weren't in town? It
was in Monterey County.
Monterey County, okay. But it's a ranch.
Yes. Horses, cattle,
okay,
all of that stuff.
Okay.
Which is a whole nother train of
right.
where that goes.
We'll stay on this for a little bit, and then we can go another direction. Okay, so your dad and mother were both supportive of what you were doing. You were keeping your grades up?
Yeah. Did fine on the grades, did fine in school. Didn't get in the way of anything. It was fun. It was healthy. Although, you know, it wasn't like I was overweight and needed to worry about that. So
you were running for a different reason.
It was fun. Yeah.
It was fun, because generally, running and fun don't always go together. But for you, it was fun. Did that mean it was easy?
It's only as easy as you make it. It's only as hard as you make it.
Okay. But so you're a sophomore, and you're not extremely competitive, or are you?
I wasn't competitive enough to work at in the off hours, and
the training part.
Yeah, and I think you know, competitive instincts manifest differently in different people.
Okay.
And in terms of how you're I don't think you're born with being competitive necessarily. If you're in a non-competitive environment your whole life,
Jim Steer would disagree with you. He thinks that he thought that we're all just grew up, you know, we're wired that way. The competitiveness, the survival part.
Possibly.
Okay. Anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in because you know Jim Steer.
So you know, I think the other part about being competitive versus the survival instinct is there's a whole lot different drivers, and I have examples of that, but we're not quite to that part of my life yet to tell those examples.
Okay.
But, there are people that find themselves being a lot more competitive because of factors in their lives. The right motivations have to appear. I mean, look, we have it easy. We're all Americans, right? If you come from a middle class background in America, life's pretty good. We are not fighting for our survival, and we're not fighting to eat. Generally, people have their basic needs met.
Those needs are all met, yeah.
And so it's your competitiveness isn't a survival function, it's to serve some other need.
It's a higher need. Higher. Okay.
And so sometimes it takes a while to figure out what that higher need is that
So as a sophomore, you're in Salinas, small pond.
I'd have chucked the running in a heartbeat if that one gal would have gone out with me, but she never would, so I had to keep running to give me something to do.
Are you serious?
You're pretty easily distracted as a sophomore in high school. At least some of us were. So.
Okay. All right. So as a sophomore, you didn't live and die about running cross country.
No, it was a fun thing to do, but it wasn't what got me going in the morning.
Okay. What about that junior year? Are you still at Salinas High School?
All the way through graduation, yep.
Okay. So are you running differently as a junior?
Probably got a little more serious by my senior year. You know,
senior year, okay.
Physically, you develop a lot in that, you know.
What year are we talking about now?
13, 14, up to age 20,
so
21.
what year on the calendar?
I graduated in 1977.
77, okay.
And so I probably was a pretty scrawny little kid at 15 or 16. I was still a pretty scrawny kid at 17 or 18, but maybe had a little more strength and a little more
same height
ability. I couldn't tell you.
What'd you weigh? 100?
Couldn't tell you.
Okay.
I could guess. I could make something up.
No. But scrawny. Okay.
I didn't start monitoring my weight until my mid to late 20s.
Well,
and that's also a different story.
Yeah, there's a lot of stories here. We may not get to all of them, Tom. Okay, but so as a senior then, tell us about that senior year, 1977.
We're digging here. No, it was, running was fun, cross country and track. Girls, chasing girls like crazy, trying to get dates with certain ones that ignored me and other ones liked me, but I wasn't so sure about them. And, all of that high school stuff that you do. Eventually threw some two applications in for college, didn't get into one, got into the other.
Which one did you get into?
Davis, UC.
Okay.
And, worked in the summers and on the ranch or in the feedlot or some such thing, and life was pretty simple.
Okay. So at UC Davis, did you run?
Yeah, different. College is a whole new world, of course.
You weren't chasing girls anymore?
Oh yeah,
and drinking,
chasing girls
and
drinking and all of that. But
so what's new?
The classes are different. The opportunities are different. Salinas in the mid to late 70s was a very small agricultural town.
Had to be.
And
yeah.
Davis was a whole world of social and artistic and athletic and educational opportunities, and just
So was there an adjustment for you?
in both feet going wahoo. So yeah, I guess so.
You left.
It was a lot of fun, that first year, and there's some moments of uncertainty, but there was just a lot of stuff to discover and people to meet and new way of going to classes, new place to live, and it was great. Just great.
So it was a great experience leaving Salinas.
The whole college experience was great. Just exposure to as many different things as you could get possibly.
You didn't major in accounting, did you?
No.
Okay.
Took a lot of classes, though.
Took a lot of classes. It was fun.
It was fun. Yeah.
Well, yeah, so you take a lot of classes.
Yeah, I think you needed, I forget what you needed to graduate, 130 or 40 units, and I had a couple hundred, just because. Why? There's just more stuff to take.
A lot of things to take. A lot of things to take. You could be there a long time.
Right.
Okay, so did you run at UC Davis?
Just for
competitively?
Fun.
Just for fun?
Just for fun. My high water, I did everything. My high water mark, I did 7 sports in one day.
Almost a decathlon.
Well, we had an intramural soccer game, and I played racquetball with a guy, and I went running, and I rode horses, and I can't even remember all the other things I did, but, it was sort of like, that was the way it was. You just did everything because you could.
Were you working too?
No. Well, I was working in the summers.
Just
really
the
hard.
summers,
Yeah,
okay.
really hard. 12 hours a day.
Back in Salinas?
I actually found a job driving trucks.
Okay.
12 hours a day, 6 to 7 days a week for 2.5 months, hauling tomatoes out of Woodland, just down the street. And paid great. All you did was eat, sleep, work, and that's it. You had no time to spend money. And I would bankroll myself just enough to squeak through to the end of the following year.
Okay.
And then I had a small trust fund that my grandfather set up for me that paid for like books and tuition, I think.
Okay.
And then I paid for my living expenses, and every once in a while I'd get thin, and Dad, he'd send me $100 or something to just make that last few weeks till the truck driving season started, but it worked out pretty good.
Okay. Okay. Anything that you want to share specifically about Davis?
So here's one of those. I was reading the school paper one day, sophomore year, and I read a story about the polo team. Polo. What's that? Horse polo. Why, that sounds like games on horseback. I don't know anything about games on horseback. I grew up riding a ranch horse. We used to.
You had a Western saddle?
Western saddle. We'd ride up and down in the mountains.
But you knew how to ride.
I thought so. And I thought to myself, well, games on horseback. This sounds like fun. I should go check this out.
You're a sophomore now.
I'm a sophomore now.
Okay.
So after school, I go out to the rodeo grounds equestrian area, which used to be there. I think it's built up. It's out behind what's now the expanded vet school. And there was a gal on a horse, and she had this stick 52 inches long, and she was hitting a ball on the ground. And I pulled up on my bike. You got around by bikes in Davis.
How'd you know it was 52 inches?
I know that now. I didn't know that at the time.
Okay.
And I said, hey, I read about that in the paper. I want to try that. And she said, great, climb on up here. And I said, okay, I will. And I climbed up behind her on the saddle. She showed me how to hold the mallet. She climbed off.
How do you hold the mallet?
Well, it's kind of like a one-handed golf club thing.
Okay.
I don't have one to demonstrate with.
I should have had you brought one.
And I trotted around and swung at the ball and thought that was just the greatest thing since.
Were you able to hit the ball?
Probably not.
You don't remember?
No, I don't remember. I mean, you know, it was like a lot of things going on. You got to drive the horse. You got to swing this 52-inch long stick. The ball's only that big. It's way down there.
The ball needs to be bigger.
Bouncing around and all of that stuff. So that was one of those experiences that I thought I should try. So fast forward 4 years. It's my 5th year at Davis.
How long were you at Davis?
5 years.
Only 5?
Well, because
200 units in 5 years? That's pretty good.
Yeah. No,
You took a lot of units.
I took a lot of classes. Yeah. 'Cause it kept you honest. Had to get up and go through your day and do things.
Yeah.
So 5 years later, I got to be a starter on the UC Davis men's intercollegiate polo squad. We won the NCAA national championship.
Wait, you're still in your 5th year now?
5th year.
So what year was this?
82.
From 77 to 82. There you go.
I am an engineer. I can do that much. And so I actually got pretty good at polo. I did learn to hit the ball. I did learn to control the horse.
Did. Well, tell us a little bit about polo in terms of how many on a team and
So there's 2 broad variants of polo, outdoor and indoor. Outdoor is played on a grass field.
You were doing outdoor?
Let me get to that.
Okay.
300 by 200 yards, 4 people on a side. Okay?
4 and 4, okay.
No goalies. No one holds still. Everyone's always in motion. The indoor variation is played in essentially a large rodeo arena, like 100 yards wide and maybe 100 yards long, maybe 40 wide.
Really small.
Relatively small.
Compared.
3 people on a side. The outdoor ball is a little hard plastic solid thing about this size. The indoor ball, slightly larger, bouncy. It's like a miniature soccer ball. It's got all the, 8-sided little hexagonal things. Inflated, and you can actually play ricochet shots off the walls and whatnot. So the same game, but a lot of differences in
Tactical,
terms of
that indoor is
tactical and how you strike the ball and the angles of stuff and whatnot. So same thing, no goalies. Everybody's in constant motion. 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 is forward. Usually would be, lined up against the 4 on the other side. But a lot of position changing and whatnot.
So there's a forward.
Nominally a forward and a back, and 1 or 2 people in between.
So like a defensive person or defensive?
Yeah,
is there defense per se,
you wind up, there's a lot of rules about the line of the ball because the horses have momentum. If you're going at speed, there's a lot of momentum. 1,000-pound animal at 20 miles an hour is a lot of momentum. And so it takes a while to stop and turn, and there's rules about the line of the ball. If I strike the ball here, this is my line. You are not allowed to approach and cross that line at 90 degrees. That would be very dangerous. Kawamo, 2,000 pounds, big wreck.
With all your cutting experience with the quarter horses, it must have been easy.
You have to come alongside and match up to the line, then you can ride people off and so forth. So a lot of times, even though there's nominally a forward and a back, you wind up more fluid. If you've been watching the World Cup, I'm surprised by how often the midfielders and the backfielders even will score goals because there is a lot of fluidity. There's generally a position, but there's also a lot of fluidity as the play unfolds. So,
did you have a special position or?
I was generally a forward player, a 1 in arena or 1 or 2 in outdoor.
Which meant what?
Tended to be, you do a lot of runs towards the goal, and sometimes you're running out there going, here, I'm open, waiting for someone to hit it up. Other times you carry the ball. Other times you're clear out a defender, Just, you know, some people were had a more sit back and survey the whole field and type of thing, and other people put their head down and go.
Is that you?
Apparently so. I was up there in front.
Okay. So your competitive nature got expressed.
Oh, yeah.
On the polo field.
You definitely wound up the competitive nature a lot. It's a very physical, the indoor version, which was our NCAA championship, was in an indoor version of the sport, not outdoor. And all of the teams that won their regions flew to the East Coast, to Connecticut. We played a big tournament, and that's how the thing is decided. And, you know, it's very, very close contact, very fast-moving game, very quick decisions, tempers flare, and, yeah, your competitive instincts do get wound up.
So your scrawny weight didn't matter?
Everything's a trade-off. The guys who had wrists this big and were really stuffed, they were hard to ride off. They were also heavier and harder on the horses. And so if you could be light and quick, you couldn't hit the ball as hard, but a lot of times it's the touch, not the whale on it. So you you use your strengths and hide your weaknesses as best you can, just like in everything.
Okay. So there had to be a lot of highlights during that 82 season.
Well, I played polo after I got out of college. I continued to play and was fortunate enough to travel around California, Idaho, western United States, got invited to Hawaii. A group of 4 of us from Sacramento got...
Is this amateur?
Yeah, it's all amateur.
Amateur, okay.
Yeah. A group of 4 of us got invited to come over and play in Zambia, in Africa. So we went for a month and played polo in Zambia. And there's a book in that month, just about. It was quite an experience. So,
tell us a story about Zambia. There has to be a story there.
Oh, or many stories. So,
but just pick one.
So Zambia was very much a colonial country. Hadn't been colonial since 1959, year of my birth, so I remember that. But a very poor country with a residual white minority of ex-colonials, I mean, people whose families had been in the country for years and years. And people who had come for business or whatnot. And the polo community, frankly, was generally white. There might have been a couple of black players, I can't recall. And, fairly well-to-do for that country. And I can't explain Africa if you haven't been there, and the levels of poverty and the people who live in grass huts and so forth. But horses were very, very difficult to export or import, and so they had a very limited pool, thus they were very dear. Even if they were kind of funky horses, they were still very precious to their owners. But the way they were able to play polo, there was only about 25 players in the country. And so to play, they had to bring in people from other countries.
Okay.
They were not allowed to bring their horses in. So for people from Zimbabwe or other nearby countries that might have played couldn't haul the horses in. Disease and ag restrictions, what have you. And so we were flown in, and every polo player in the country, all 25, put all of their horses into the pool for us to pick from to play.
Okay.
And then whichever, except for the guys that we were going to play against, they kept their own horses. And so the first morning, jet lagged, we got in the day before, it's 10 hours time shift, we get up, we're staggering around, it's probably midday and it feels like it's 2 in the morning and we're all barely awake and stuff. And a guy shows up with a truck and the 4 of us get in, we go out to the field and he says, here's the drill, gents. Get yourself a stick, a mallet. You're going to come out and test horses. Get on a horse, ride him for 2 or 3 minutes, come back and tell me 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 stars. We're playing this afternoon. You need to pick 6 horses. And we walked out on the field and looked down. There were 150 horses saddled up with 75 black grooms, each one holding 2 horses. He says, first 4, get on. And so in the next 80 or 90 minutes, I rode, I can't even remember, 15 different horses, picked some,
Remember, you're an engineer, so you ought to know the numbers.
We are so shell-shocked, jet-lagged, whatnot. They take us back to the house, they feed us lunch, they said, oh, here, the traditional shot before you go back out on the field to play. We all said, fine. I don't think they had the same traditional shot that we did. I'm not sure about that. Went out that afternoon and were crushed. we were just crushed. You know, the horses, you canter around on them and hit the ball and you go, boy, this horse is great. And as soon as there's traffic and other horses running around, they just go bonkers. And other ones you thought were going to be terrible turned out to be great. So that was the start of our trip. We did rebound. We played 6 games in the 2 weeks that we played polo there. We won 3, we lost 3, so it worked out for everybody. And
so were they that good?
No, I mean, really, getting on a strange horse in a strange country and the jet lag and all of that really does have an impact on you. You are not necessarily at your best. There's a lot of how the rules get called. You know, how tight someone will call the line of the ball. And
like the referee?
Yeah, there's usually 2 mounted umpires, and how they call the fouls. The feel of the balls. So we have these nice injection molded plastic balls here in the US. Every one of them is the same. They don't have those in Zambia. So what they do is they get wood and they task one of their help to sit there and carve balls. And so they're wood of differing densities, and you whack them, you get so many hits, and then they go explode into pieces and whatnot. So just how the ball goes when you hit it, how to put English on it is all. Anyway, we warmed up, we redeemed ourselves.
But it's still polo?
We did. It was still polo. It was still great fun, and it was an amazing experience. And then we spent a couple of weeks traveling around Africa as well after that.
So was that your first international experience?
For polo, yeah.
For polo or anything else? Or
I think we took a trip to London when I was 20-ish, and so that was a few years prior. But that was my first. That was
polo too?
First sporting related.
First sporting.
International. There's a story there too.
Well,
you got me started.
Well, yeah, that's the whole idea. Okay.
So anyway, I played polo until I was, 26, 7, 8, somewhere in there.
So 1982 to the mid-80s?
Yeah, late 80s. I think we went to Zambia, I want to say in 86, 7, 8, somewhere in there.
Okay.
And about that time, two things happened. One is you realize that there's only so far you can go in polo with youth and enthusiasm. It's a very expensive sport. I was spending all of my discretionary income and some of my non-discretionary
So you're working
income.
At this point?
Oh, absolutely. Got to pay for all the horses.
Okay.
And you realize that you're never going to be as good as the guys who have a lot of money and have really nice horses and whatnot. And so you have to either try and make a go of it as a professional in some way, horse trainer or whatnot, which has its own challenges and risks, or you can say, hey, this was great. I did 12 years of this sport. I got a lot out of it. I have friends. I got to travel.
Oh, yeah.
It's a really neat sport.
Highly competitive.
I won a national championship back in college.
Exactly.
I won tournaments all over California, Idaho, and Washington.
So you were well known.
I don't know about that. You lose more than you ever win, but
okay.
So there were some high points. The trip to Zambia, and I just walked away from it. I was getting a lot more interested in running.
Okay, so from 77 to 88, graduated high school, you're at UC Davis, you got into polo, you're doing your bike. Are you running? You did some running, recreational running at this point?
Yeah, the bike was just the only way you got around Davis.
Okay.
It's still I wasn't a cyclist per se.
Okay.
It was just
Did you know about Western States at this point?
No idea. In fact,
okay.
The way I heard about Western States.
We'll go into Western, but I want to go back to what kind of running you're doing up through 88.
Yeah, just for fun. I generally ran 3 days a week, 6 or 7 miles a day, sometimes more. One of my shocks in life was my first office job. Why is that?
During this period?
Yeah, 82, got out of school. Took about a year. There was a recession going on, but about 83 or so, I got my first engineering office job.
Okay.
And coming from...
What kind of engineering?
Well, I graduated as an ag engineer. I was a class away from a mechanical and a civil degree as well.
Well, that's why it was 5 years.
Yeah, I'm registered, all those classes.
There you
Just didn't get my timing right to get all
Okay.
the right things, or I could have triple degreed, but oh well.
Okay.
And registered civil, so primarily
Okay.
what passes for a civil engineer.
Okay.
Remember 7 sports and horses and all these
Yeah.
things and biking
Yeah,
from class
running,
to class?
yeah.
I got to sit in an office or a cubicle on my butt for 8 hours a day
You're
to
kidding.
do stuff.
You're kidding.
Painful.
Wow.
Literally, it was a bit of a
Had to
shock
be, had
to
to be.
my system.
Had to
So
be.
running became racquetball because there was a court, gym type
Is this
thing.
in Sacramento area?
Yeah, Sacramento,
Okay.
right behind Cal Expo.
Okay.
There was a gym nearby, just something to break up the day and get the blood flowing. But still really just for fun.
Okay. So here we are. You're getting out of polo in '88. Western States is down the road. What about ride and tie?
Also down the road.
Down the road.
Well,
Okay.
So here's the sequence.
There's okay. There has to be a sequence
Of course.
here.
So I stayed. One of the things that we travel around.
I don't
to
want to
play
forget
polo.
Tevis. That's down the road too. Right?
We traveled around, and a lot of times if you're from Sacramento polo player and you go to play in Santa Rosa for a weekend tournament, whoever we is who comes
Okay.
over from Sacramento.
Are you married yet?
No.
Okay.
I was staying with a friend, a guy named Bud Darty.
Okay, I know the name.
There you go. And Bud has many, many, many amazing attributes. One of the best horsemen I have ever met or will ever know in many dimensions. And one of the things that Bud did is he started riding Tevis in a long time ago, late 60s maybe? Certainly.
Maybe even before late 60s.
Didn't
in the 60s.
In the 60s.
It was in the 60s. Yeah.
Won it a couple of times, set a scorching course record. Bud was a phenomenal polo player, great horseman, had fantastic horses. Anyway, was fortunate enough to be staying with them, spare bedroom and pictures everywhere because he's had a very rich life. And what's this picture? Well, this is the Tevis ride, and he was telling me something about the Tevis ride.
What year is this?
Mid-80s.
Mid-80s.
85, 6, somewhere in there.
So how did you meet? Oh, through polo you met.
polo.
There you go.
Yeah,
Perfect.
I presume if I was staying at his house, I was probably on his team. We used to mix and match teams all the
Okay.
time for that particular tournament weekend. We played a lot of tournaments together over a few years there. And he tells me all about Tevis, this 100-mile race, point to point, and they do a run there too. And he tells me the Gordy Ainslie story and how this guy ran it, and people run this thing. And again, this was in the mid-'80s. So
It's still relatively new.
Tevis has been around for a while,
But not
the
States.
run
The run is relatively
pretty new.
Pretty new,
right?
yeah.
And so this is, by now I've been working a few years, 5 or 6 years. Polo kind of got as far as I'm going to go. I've been running a little bit more, and I'm out on a run just along the bike path in Sacramento, and I have this discussion with myself and basically think, I've been running since I was 14 or 15. I should do something before I get old, whatever old looks like when you're 25.
You're in your 20s, right? Come on.
And I thought, well, what would I like to do? I'd like to either run a 4-minute mile or run 100 miles.
Now, wait a minute. A 4-minute mile.
This is my conversation with myself.
I understand.
I can have whichever
you
one
can,
I want.
but let's okay.
And I
but
was.
You ran the mile.
I ran the mile, and I had probably got down to 4:40 or something.
But had
in
you
high
run
school.
a marathon at this point?
No. I'd never run more than 15 miles in my life.
So you're going from a mile to 100 miles.
Well, it was either one or the other. It's like if you're going to do something with yourself, just jump in and do it. In fact, I heard this famous quote recently: if you wait until things are ready, you'll never start. So you got to jump in.
It fits.
You got to jump in. And so I thought I probably honestly have more chance of completing 100 miles than I do of running a 4-minute mile. So I got back to my office.
What led you to that conclusion?
Just didn't think I was that fast, which ultimately turned out to be true. So
But you're running a 4:40.
in high school, it's a big difference down to 4 minutes. I know this.
Okay. College, did you ever run a mile?
Never ran competitively. In
So you
college.
didn't know what your best time was?
Yeah. No,
Okay,
I hadn't done true speed training for a while. So I got back to my office that very same afternoon and did a little research and called the office of the Western States Run and said, I'd like to enter the run. This was probably in the middle of summer, and the run is in June. Might have been in the spring.
What year is this?
Oh, 80, would have been 86 actually.
1986. Okay.
And the person on the other end of the phone, who I don't know, but I suspect was Helen Klein, because back when Norm was the race director,
Okay.
laughed and said, it's not that easy. We have a lottery. Send your entry in November. We have a drawing in December. Maybe we'll let you in next year. I said, well, thank you. Can you send me an entry? And later that year,
So at this point, you hadn't run even a marathon.
I had never run more than 15 miles.
15 miles. That's a
And
training
They
run.
sent me the application, and I
Okay.
sent it in, and that was in November-ish of 1986. And they had the lottery, which is, of course, very difficult to get in. You know, that was back when the third time you were automatic and stuff. Very few people ever got in on their first try. And guess what? I got in on my first try. And I thought,
November of 86 or December of 86.
December of 86. You have 6 months. You're going to do 100 miles.
You
I
better
first-
start
I
running.
went, yes! Oh, no. And had no idea what to do. So I went and ran CIM and staggered through that. It was pretty miserable.
What was your time?
3.5 hours, 4 hours, something or other.
You don't remember?
I don't remember. I don't have them all committed to memory. I've got a couple committed to memory, but not
Okay.
most. So
See, if Chris Turney was here, he'd remember the time. I'm just joking. Anyway.
So I had to learn how to run 100 miles. So I started running more every day,
Where were you running?
just around Sacramento, flat streets for the most part.
In the streets.
And they used to do, I think now they've devolved to having just a training weekend. But the way they used to have their sponsored training events is there were several during the year, and there was one in February. You could sign up, and the Western States Run organization would get school buses, and you paid 10 or 15 bucks, whatever it was, and they'd drive you out to Green Gate.
Slugger Mine, yeah.
Yeah, 20 miles from the finish,
Yeah.
and you'd run the last 20 miles. And that was usually in February. And then they did another one in
So
April.
was that your longest at that point? That
No,
20
because
mile?
I did CIM in time that I don't remember. That
Okay,
was in
that-
December.
Oh, three. Okay, so okay.
But that might have
But that was your
been-
first trail, right? At that distance.
I probably had made it out to Granite Bay entrance gate and
okay.
gone running, you know,
Okay.
for a few miles on the main
Okay,
trail by
okay.
then. And I met a guy on the bus ride, a guy named Martin Jones.
Okay.
And if you're testing your memory,
Don't know the name.
Martin ran a lot of Western States. He had a handful of top 10 finishes, and that would have been in the early to mid 80s. From over in the Bay Area somewhere, and wound up running with him for most of the day. And he was a font of wisdom. He just was a practical person. Said, Martin, how do I train for this? He says, I run 50s, because it's boring as hell to go run a training run 50 miles on your own. If you go, you pay your fees, there's aid stations, you go through, you do a training run, and they feed you along the way. Brilliant. I thought, that makes good sense. He says, you need to learn to walk really fast uphill. You should be able to walk 15 minutes up at 15% grade, 15-minute miles.
That's a fast walk.
And I thought, brilliant. He demonstrated it, and it was darn impressive. And I thought, that's a good trick too. He told me half a dozen other things along those lines, just made good sense, and I followed that advice, did 3 50-mile runs, started Western States. And
So you didn't have, which 50s did you do?
what did I do? I did the one over in West Sac, Pancake Flat, 3-mile loop around the port, won by a guy named Chris Turney, by the way.
Okay. He'll remember the time.
He'll remember the time.
Right.
Worked out great. Parked my pickup truck with my cooler right in the back because I ran past it every 3 miles.
Your
I
aid
could just-
station. Your aid station, yeah.
Self-aid station, you
Okay.
bet. And then Quicksilver 50
Okay.
and AR 50. Those were the 3.
Okay.
So,
Remember
anyway,
your times?
I was at about the 10% finishing in each of those races. So if there were 100 people in the race, I would finish 10th or 12th. Or if their AR-50 had 450 people in the race, I think I finished 43rd or 44th.
So you did well in your first 50s without,
Yeah,
with really,
it's okay.
with a, well, in terms of without the training?
Yeah, no, I had no idea what I was doing.
You had no idea.
Yeah, no, I just, the first time I ran 50 miles, I was so amazed that the human body, that my human body
Your human
could
body.
do that and actually live to tell the tale, come away from it going, okay, that wasn't so bad. A little stiff and sore the next day, but not so much. It's like, wow, I never knew. I never knew. Glad I didn't wait till I was prepared. If we try, so 28.
28, you're 28. Do you remember what you wore?
If I can do this, and figuring out how to go do this, and doing it, and then going, wow, okay, not so bad. I wonder if I could do that, and pushing myself to go and do that, and well, I wonder if. So I finished.
I'm going to stop you for the moment because we have. You're probably not going to believe this. This is an hour program, and we have like 5 minutes left. And so I wanted to, I'm not going to leave this, but I just wanted to mention that, Tom, I know you, I don't know the specifics, I know, but you've run all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
I know that you've won Western States 3 times, I believe. Mm-hmm. Okay. And we didn't even talk about ride and tie, which is another, and we haven't even talked about Tevis, other than you know about it. So I'm sorry.
We haven't talked about the Hawaii Ironman. We haven't talked about international endurance racing. We haven't talked about the American record in the 100K. There's a lot of stuff.
Okay. Okay. Now, you know what this means is that there's going to be a second show. There's going to be a second show. So let's. I was really impressed when I heard about your 100K record. Mm-hmm. And I forget, I remember you having a conversation with you and you saying that you ran each 10K at, was it 39 minutes or something?
39-ish, yes.
So tell the folks, a 10K is 6.2 miles, mm-hmm. and 39 minutes.
Well, my first 50 miles I went through in 5:08. I told you I remembered some of them, which works out to around a 6:10 pace, 6 minutes and 10 seconds per mile for 50 miles. And slowed down, which you always do in 100K, a little bit. But the 39 minutes worked out to about a 6:15, 6:16 for the whole 62 miles.
That seems fast.
So if nobody goes faster, next September it'll be 20 years as the American record.
So you still have the record?
Yeah.
Oh, that's neat. That's neat.
So the progression from finishing 26th in my first Western States,
was it
1987.
So that's a good finish. How many hours was that?
Under 22, 21 and change.
That's really fantastic.
Fast forward to 1995.
Why do you want to go from?
Because that's when I kept setting those next steps, figuring out what else I could do.
Well, let's go back to okay, so you finished 26th mm-hmm. in 1987. 87, okay. So tell us a little bit about that finish. Your father is pacing you, and what that was like, and maybe your conversation, if you remember, with your dad, going from 49 in.
Yeah, mostly we tried not to fall down in the dark and the rocks at 1 in the morning with our flashlights on. And that
was before the LEDs, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, this is...
Okay.
You know, it turns out I had a pretty good last run. That was always something I tried to do at States, was have a good force tilt to the finish. It's a really great section to run. You can go fast, and I probably passed 20 people from force tilt to the finish, including some in that last little stretch. And so it's a neat feeling, your first one, when you're coming down the street, when you can hear the track and you know you're about to finish and you realize you've got it done. And you don't know until you're right there, because there could still be someone who comes to catch you. Your first finish and your first win are both pretty cool when you come down that street. And you know, you just go, wow, done this.
So if you'll agree to come back, this will be part one.
Part one and part two.
Part one, because there's so much more about your story.
Like to think so.
Well, you named off so many of them. So many of them. You were supposed to turn that off.
I'm sorry, that's an alarm.
It's an alarm. Okay. So basically, so 1987, that's your first Western States. You're really a newcomer to ultra running at that particular point. But you have a good background. You got the horse, you got the bike stuff, the running, the gym, you got the right physique, you got the motivation, you got a model of your father doing this stuff. You had things going for you.
As a famous runner named Bruce Fordyce once said, the best thing you can do to get faster in a long distance race is very carefully pick your parents.
True.
Genetics.
True.
It's a lot about the genetics.
Well, thank you very much for coming on, Tom. Enjoyed just part of the story, and I didn't realize that we would run out of time so soon. I knew we were going to run out of time. I mean, that's a given, but I didn't realize we'd run out so soon. Just
getting to the good part.
Good. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining us. See, generally I can see us on the screen, and he gives me signs in terms of so many minutes and so forth.